Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Latham. I'm the music director of the Wellesley Symphony Orchestra, and I am inviting you all to come to our concert of American music on November the 3rd at 2 p.m. on a Sunday. And I just want to say a few words about the composers and the works we will be performing that day. It's a good program, very varied and interesting program, even though there are only three works. They're completely different kinds of works. We're going to start out with a piece by the young American composer Carlos Simon, who in fact recently was appointed to the Deborah and Philip Edmonton Composer Chair of the Boston Symphony, a post he will hold for 3 years, working with the music director of the Boston Symphony, Andres Nelsons, and conducting children's concerts and composing for the BSO. We will be performing his work called Breathe, and I'll read his little program note that he writes in the score. And he writes the following. He starts with a quotation: "Drop thy still dews of quietness, till all our striving cease." And Carlos Simon says, "One of my favorite books to read and reread has been Meditations of the Heart, written by the renowned theologian Howard Thurman, who was a spiritual advisor to many, including Martin Luther King Jr. Meditations of the Heart is a collection of meditations and prayers on the beauty of humanity. I was deeply inspired by one section entitled Still Dews of Quietness, which urges us to, quote, stay put for a spell. Through his words, I wanted to take the gesture further by writing a piece that encourages others to simply reflect and breathe. And if you come and listen to us, the very first bar of the piece is a bar of an undefined period of silence. So we can begin to reflect, and then it's a very slow moving piece that does invite reflection and meditation. Following this, we will be playing the cello concerto by the American composer Samuel Barber. Barber's most famous for his Adagio for strings, but you can hear elements of that in a way, particularly in the slow movement of this work. It has 3 movements, and it was commissioned by the conductor Serge Koussevitzky, who was the conductor of the Boston Symphony. And he was a Soviet emigre, and he had a friend who was also a Soviet emigre called Araya Garabusova, who was a very, very fine cellist. And so he had her in mind, Koussevitzky, when he asked Barber if he would compose a cello concerto. And Barber took up the challenge. It was 1945, the Second World War was still going, and Barber had been drafted into the Army Air Corps. So Koussevitzky wrote some letters to see if he could get a little bit of a reprieve so he could get on with writing the cello concerto, and he did actually get that reprieve. And it's not as often played as the violin concerto. Why? Because it's very, very difficult. That's the main reason, but it's a terrific piece, very exciting and very lyrical and even romantic. And the composer Barber worked a lot with the original cellist Raya Garbusova to sort of get her style, and so in a way, her sort of playing is reflected in this wonderful piece. And our soloist is a very, very fine cellist, Brent Selby, and I'm very much looking forward to our collaboration. And then that's our first half, so Breathe and the cello concerto by Samuel Barber. The second half is the great symphonic dances by Leonard Bernstein from West Side Story. And of course, we all know, I think we all know, I'm sure we do all know, many pieces, many excerpts, songs from West Side Story. It was written between 1955 and 1957. One of the truly great collaborations. In a way, it reminds me of the collaborations that Serge Diaghilev had with the Ballet Russe in the 1910s and 1920s, and you like the Rite of Spring and Petrushka and pieces like that, Afternoon of a Faun, and so Bernstein, of course, Bernstein was the composer. The lyricist was none other than the young Stephen Sondheim, and the choreographer was none other than Jerome Robbins. So it was a very fruitful collaboration. When it opened, it ran on Broadway for over 2 years, so it was very successful. And then a little bit after that, Bernstein decided, oh, what can I extract from the musical to make a sort of symphonic work? And he took 9 excerpts. And of course, we know the story, the Jets and the Sharks. And it's, of course, extracted, as it were, derived from Romeo and Juliet. And it's a love story set in New York. And the 2 rival gangs, and Maria and Tony, fall in love with each other. And so this is I'll just give you a brief synopsis of what you will hear. So the prologue, the beginning, the growing rivalry between the 2 teenage street gangs, the Jets and the Sharks, moving into Somewhere, a slow section. In a visionary dance sequence, the 2 gangs are united in friendship. Scherzo. In the same dream, they break through the city walls and suddenly find themselves in a world of space, air, and sun. Then we get to the famous Mambo. Reality again, competitive dance between the gangs. And we get to the Cha-Cha. The star-crossed lovers, Tony and Maria, see each other for the first time and dance together. Then the meeting scene. Music accompanies their first spoken words. Moving on to the cool fugue, an elaborate dance sequence in which the Jets practice controlling their hostility. Then the famous rumble, climactic gang battle during which the 2 gang leaders are killed. And then the finale, love music developing into a procession which recalls in tragic reality the vision of Somewhere. And if you saw the film Maestro, about Leonard Bernstein and really about his relationship with his Cuban wife, there's a section there where it might be Kutovic himself encourages Bernstein to, are you a composer? Are you a conductor? Are you a pianist? What are you? And Bernstein didn't want to answer that question. He wanted to be all 3. And so what you find in this music is sort of a product in a way of the jazz age, of Latin music, of Cuban music, and at the same time it's almost entirely symphonic. And it's very tightly woven, and I'll just play the 3 notes that, in a way, define the entire piece, and which begin the entire piece. Well, wrong, never mind that. You got this interval. So a so-called augmented fourth, which is a bit unsettling. So it begins the entire piece and ends the entire piece. So they fell in love, but people killed. And the ending mirrors the beginning. It's really one of the very great works, I think, of American music, of 20th century music, and come and listen to it. It's very exciting, a huge percussion section, huge orchestra actually, lots of brass. So that is our program. Again, November 4th, is that right? I think it's the right. No, November 3rd. November 3, 2 p.m, MassBay Community College. We look forward to seeing you and meeting you there. Enjoy the music.